After the subprime mortgage crisis in 2008, the world economy entered a new mediocrity. China's economic growth has also declined. This slowdown in growth is due to multiple factors. 1. Volume effect. China's economy is no longer what it used to be. It is the second largest economy in the world, with an annual growth rate of 5%, and the annual increase is equivalent to half of Australia's GDP. At this stage, it is unrealistic to continue to maintain high growth above 8%, because that would mean a crowding out effect on other economies. 2. China has reached the middle income level and faces the middle income trap caused by rising costs. The low-hanging fruit of rapid development based on low costs and low prices is no longer sustainable. 3. Although the original growth rate was high, it was an extensive development. Environmental pollution, resource consumption, the shift from reality to virtuality, and the widening gap between the rich and the poor have all become realistic constraints. The slowdown in economic growth is inevitable for high-quality development and a return to a reasonable and sustainable growth rate. 4. The catch-up effect ends. In the past, China had the advantage of being a latecomer. It could quickly catch up by learning from the experience of developed countries in terms of systems, management, and technology, and it could take decades to complete what others took hundreds of years to do. Today, the management gap between Chinese and foreign companies is very small, which means that our space for achieving high growth through rapid learning has been greatly compressed. 5. Compression of investment space. China's economy has significant investment-driven characteristics, and China's investment rate is much higher than the world average. If you want to get rich, build roads first. China already has the world's largest infrastructure. In some places, infrastructure has even been built ahead of schedule. Therefore, the marginal effect of stimulating growth through infrastructure investment is significantly diminishing. 6. Transition from international circulation to domestic circulation. The world economy before 2008 was described by Harvard professor Ferguson as Chimerica, and this model of Chinese exports plus American consumption has now been disrupted by the great decoupling shrouded in the Thucydides trap. Replace. Starting from the logic of hegemony, the United States launches trade wars and technological wars to promote the so-called Indo-Pacific economic framework that is an alternative to China. In this context, many of the original economic logics need to be reset. This adjustment process will be painful for China, the United States, and the world. However, slowing down growth does not mean there is no room for growth. In fact, China is still the economy with the greatest development potential in the world today. On the one hand, we must view the decline in growth with a normal mind, and on the other hand, we must stimulate our potential and open up new growth space for the Chinese economy. Since 1978, China's economic growth cannot be separated from several key driving forces: the progress in agricultural productivity brought about by the rural household responsibility system, the efficiency improvement brought about by the restructuring of state-owned enterprises, the huge vitality brought by the rise of the private economy, the huge population dividends, including the unique endowment of 300 million migrant workers, a real estate bull market that has lasted for nearly 20 years. Chinese exports sweeping the world, and huge investment in infrastructure. China used more cement from 2011 to 2013 than the United States did more were used throughout the 20th century. Nowadays, real estate has become a gray rhinoceros, exports are facing decoupling pressure, the pressure of population aging is highlighted, and the space for infrastructure investment is limited. It is easy for people to raise this question: what will China's economy rely on in the second half? Regarding this question of the century, former Vice Prime Minister Liu He gave a clear and logical answer in the article "The Growth Miracle Has Never Ended" in 2008. Liu He pointed out: 1. China must speed up the adjustment of the relationship between savings and consumption, gradually become a major country with endogenous demand, and provide a huge market for the world. 2. It is necessary to promote the upgrading of the industrial structure, accelerate technological progress and improve investment efficiency, increase the proportion of the service industry, and match the industrial structure with domestic resource endowments. 3. Lee Kuan Yew walked up to me and said to me, "Liu He, China's biggest challenge is urbanization. Urbanization of 1 billion people is enough to change the world, but your pressure will be unprecedented. In the past 30 years, we have transferred less than 300 million rural surplus laborers, but occupied nearly 1 billion acres of farmland. Urbanization is very costly. We need to recognize the trend clearly, proceed from the reality that China has more people and less land, and integrate the chaotic urban pattern according to the idea of establishing main functional areas and megacity circles, with big cities as the core, integrating small and medium-sized cities and small towns, cultivate and create large urban areas that are consistent with China's global economic positioning. 4. The middle income class is emerging. However, the proportion of this class is still low, perhaps less than 20%, and it is difficult to support the expansion of domestic consumer demand and long-term social stability. 5. Innovation is a function. If education develops well, innovation results will follow. The author believes that Liu He very concisely and comprehensively pointed out the 5 key factors for China's next stage of growth: domestic consumption, independent innovation, urbanization, cultivating the middle-income class, and education that encourages innovation. The necessity and feasibility of Liu He's ideas are clear at a glance. China's household consumption accounts for less than 40% of GDP, far lower than the world average of 60%. To increase consumption, we must cultivate a strong middle-income group. China's innovation is still weak. In recent years, the United States Stuxnet has highlighted the urgency and significance of innovation. Innovation is inseparable from open education. China's urbanization rate reaches 64.7%, but the urbanization rate of the registered population is only 46.7%, which is far lower than the urbanization rate of about 80% in developed countries. However, China's economic growth in the second half is not easy to come by, but highly dependent on economic system reform. The reason is very simple. If the current institutional constraints are not eliminated, it will be difficult to open up new growth space. 1. To encourage innovation, it is necessary to promote the streamlining of administration and decentralization of powers, and the guarantee of the rule of law, so that everything can be done without prohibition by law, and those who have permanent property must have perseverance. At the same time, the education system must be more open and inclusive and encourage innovative thinking. 2. To stimulate consumption motivation, it is necessary to promote the reform of the income distribution system, increase the proportion of residents' income in national income distribution, and crack the 4 major problems of education, senior care, medical care, and housing. This means that the focus of government investment must shift from infrastructure to education, pension, medical care, affordable housing, and other public welfare undertakings. 3. To promote urbanization, we must break down the barriers of the household registration system and build a more inclusive public service system. In a word, China's economy has no shortage of room for growth, but only reform can release new space. Based on current reality, the following reforms should become the focus. 1. Further streamline government agencies and personnel, significantly reduce administrative approvals, and reduce institutional transaction costs. 2. Vigorously promote the reform of the income distribution system and expand the middle-income group. The key points include: 1. Transforming from capital-intensive growth to human capital-driven growth. 2. Launching secondary distribution with inheritance tax as the core. 3. The government building a bottom-up social security and assistance mechanism. 3. Gradually cancel the household registration system and the education, medical and other welfare arrangements attached to it, and replace it with a point system for the permanent population to promote the free movement of the population across the country. 4. Vigorously promote the market-oriented reform of factors, especially financial factors, so that the capital market replaces banks as the main channel for resource allocation. 5. Vigorously promote competitive neutrality between state-owned enterprises and private enterprises, gradually withdraw from competitive fields, and achieve fair competition between state-owned enterprises and private enterprises. It can be seen that reform and opening up is a key move that determines the fate of contemporary China. How to relieve worries? Only reform. The historical picture, which has not seen major changes in a century, is slowly unfolding. Join the Secret Realm Tracking Entrepreneur Study Tour. Join hands to get through the fog of world politics and economy. Get out of the big change depression. Live up to the great beauty of China. Be an understanding person in uncertain times. Join the secret tracking and pursue along the way great beauty and true knowledge.